Hey there, internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions of the thing. This show is made possible entirely by the support of our patrons over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. So if you like the show and you can support us over there, we would definitely appreciate it. But if you can't, no big deal. The fact that you're listening is awesome, and thank you, and all that fun stuff. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, all that jazz. So the original plan tonight was Frank was going to sit down with me from that nerdy site, and we were going to sit down and discuss basically Thursday night. We were going to sit down and talk about kind of the first 3 episodes of WandaVision. It's kind of like a check-in on the series. He had some technical issues, and basically his computer crashed on him like when we were supposed to sit down and record. So I instead decided I would stay up, watch the 4th episode, which I just did, and then kind of do a solo check-in on kind of the series so far. I'm really enjoying it. It's a ton of fun. I'm very fascinated, especially with this most recent episode, to see where they go with everything. So yeah, this week's episode is all about WandaVision. We'll probably do another episode basically to wrap up this miniseries. Hopefully with Frank. Hopefully he'll be back up and running on that, and maybe we'll bring in somebody else as well to do kind of like a full season wrap up and talking about our thoughts once WandaVision is all done. But I figured, we're about halfway through the season. So yeah, let's dive in and talk about it. So this episode is going to be talking on the first 4 episodes, which are filmed before a live studio audience, Don't Touch That Dial, Now in Color, and I have no idea what this 4th episode's name is because they probably won't release that and update Disney Plus with that until the morning when this episode's going live or something like that. But I'm recording this at 1:40 a.m. Here in Phoenix. So basically, like, I watched the episode as soon as it went live, and I've basically sat down and hit record. So I'm kind of flying in a little unfiltered on this one. But I did kind of do a lot of the legwork on the previous 3 episodes, kind of going in because that was the original plan for this. So kind of the regular rigmarole. Well, why are we talking about this? Because it's the new hotness on Disney Plus. Of course, it is the ongoing hotness. So that was it. It seemed like a fitting discussion point. Originally released here. The series is originally being released between January 15th, 2021, and the final episode will air on March 5th, 2021. So these 4 episodes have hit on January 15th for episodes 1 and 2, January 22nd for episode 3, and here now January 29th for episode 4. Other notable releases I pulled in here of the time, you had Cobra Kai Season 3 came out New Year's Day on Netflix. You have Batwoman Season 2 came out started on January 17th on the CW. And you had on Disney Plus here on January 22nd, Pixar Popcorn Season 1, which is basically a series of like Pixar shorts that I still need to check out myself. Runtimes on these episodes running around 30 minutes typically. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline of things, this is the first new MCU content after the long drought that we had in 2020 due to all the COVID stuff. This is the first Disney Plus MCU show. And then in the timeline of things, this has ended up falling between Spider-Man Far From Home, which aired July 2nd, 2019, which debuted film in theaters and stuff July 2nd, and originally what was supposed to be the first MCU show, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, got switched around due to scheduling and COVID and all that stuff. So that is now coming out March 19th, my birthday, is when that's going to start, and that's going to wrap up April 23rd. So basically, like, it's like realizing that this show is going to go through March 5th, and then we're going to have 2 weeks, and we're going to go straight into another Marvel show is pretty cool. And then, of course, Black Widow was supposed to exist within all of this. Black Widow was supposed to come out last year, as was, I think, was the Eternals, or was it, I don't remember. But we were supposed to get more MCU stuff in 2020. That just didn't happen, obviously. But Black Widow is now tentatively scheduled for May 7th, 2021. We'll see how that all plays out, obviously, as COVID is continually a factor. As far as the who's who here, we have Matt Shankman being the director slash creator of the series. Or no, not the creator. He's the director of these episodes. I believe he directed every one of them. He jumped out at me, his IMDb. He did an episode of Chuck, which is a show near and dear to my heart. He did Chuck versus the Subway, which is a fun tongue-in-cheek episode, bringing in, I believe that was the episode centered around Subway. You have he's done 43 episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And then he did a couple of notable episodes of Game of Thrones, notably Eastwatch and Spoils of War. For the writers here, I'll just kind of run through all of them. You have Jack Schaefer is kind of the created by, the showrunner for the series, and also the writer for Filmed Before a Live Studio Audience. You have Gretchen Enders doing Don't Touch That Dial. You have Megan McDonnell, who did Now in Color, as well as this episode 4, and then Bobak Esfarjani. Bobak Esfarjani was also credited on episode 4. Notable things there: Jack Schaefer had done. I believe it's actually Jack. I think it's like Jacqueline is probably I think the abbreviation, because it is a she. So I apologize if I said he earlier. But she wrote Olaf's Frozen Adventure, as well as The Hustle, which was the, I believe, 2019 film that was effectively like the gender swapped Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson. And then she is also credited as the story by credit for the upcoming Black Widow film. Gretchen Enders, nothing particularly of note. Megan McDonnell, these are her first writing credits, so shout out to her. And then I honestly just wrote Bobak Esfarjani on the doc here. I did not go back in and look up to see if they've done anything outside of this. As for starring, you have Elizabeth Olsen, of course, playing Wanda Maximoff, who kind of made her debut breakout. Obviously, she's a Olsen sister, and technically some of her early roles were like Full House, and then How the West Was Fun, which is a Olsen twins movie that I remember watching a lot when I was a kid. Couldn't tell you a thing about it right now, but it was basically like them on a dude ranch, I think. Anyway, Elizabeth Olsen made her kind of like solo breakout in Martha Marcy May Marlene, where she got like a lot of award buzz and stuff like that. She also did Old Boy with Josh Brolin. She's been playing the role of Wanda Maximoff here since Captain America: The Winter Soldier, where she debuted in the post-credit sequence along with Pietro. She was in Godzilla, which was weird because her brother in the MCU was her husband in Godzilla. So that was and that was like 3 months after one another. And then she will next be seen outside of WandaVision in the MCU in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which obviously this is going to probably have a lot of tie-in to kind of whatever is going in there. You also have Paul Bettany here returning as Vision, who I remember first seeing as Geoffrey Chaucer in A Knight's Tale when I was growing up, which has A Knight's Tale just in general has a great cast, because you also have Alan Tudyk in there. Of course, the late Heath Ledger was in there and phenomenal. And the other guy in kind of their little quartet was the guy who played Robert Baratheon in Game of Thrones season 1. Paul Bettany, of course, also did The Da Vinci Code, where he was kind of the albino Silas character. He has been playing Jarvis since the very first Iron Man film, so in the MCU since the beginning, and then he kind of got upgraded into Vision in Avengers: Age of Ultron. He was also in Solo, A Star Wars Story, which, if I recall correctly, he replaced, was it Kenneth Williams? I think Kenneth T. Williams. I forget the guy's name. He played Omar in The Wire. That actor was originally the bad guy in Solo, but I think couldn't do reshoots or something like that, so they ended up bringing Paul Bettany in to do that role instead. You also have Catherine Hahn here as Agnes, who kind of broke out in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, as well as Anchorman in those in her early career. She had a good, fun, memorable stint in Parks and Rec, and then of course she was in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and she had a miniseries a year or two back, I think, called Mrs. Fletcher. That I remember seeing a lot of like good buzz around. Teyona Paris, up until this episode, was Geraldine, but also her original casting got announced that she was playing Monica Rambeau. That is confirmed in this particular episode, episode 4 here, who she kind of made her breakout role in Mad Men when Don Draper decided to bring in an African-American assistant. She was that actress. She had a series run on a show that I'd never heard of called Survivor's Remorse after that. And then she will also be playing this role in the upcoming Captain Marvel 2 when that happens, kind of playing Monica Rambeau, the daughter of Captain Marvel's best friend there. And she's also in the upcoming movie Candyman, which is the Jordan Peele written reboot / sequel of the, I think, iconic kind of horror series Candyman, that I believe is like all done and just got delayed and postponed because of COVID stuff. So she'll be in that as well. Emma Caulfield Ford playing Dottie, who kind of got her start, or some of her big breakouts in the original Beverly Hills 90210. Probably best known to people of my era, of my age, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where she played Anya, and then recently she had a brief stint in Once Upon a Time. And then this episode, I did not have these people in originally, so I don't have like their kind of credits and stuff. But this episode reintroduces to the MCU Randall Park playing FBI agent Jimmy Woo, who we last saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And then Kat Dennings playing now Dr. Darcy Lewis, who we last saw probably in Thor: The Dark World. I think that's probably the last time she made an appearance. So welcome back to them. And then one last little one I just want to shout at here. The guy who plays Commercial Man, so the guy in the commercials, is an actor named Ithamar Enriquez. And I bring him up because he predates my time at ASU, but when he was at ASU, he was involved with the same sketch troupe / improv troupe that I did a little bit of stuff with while I was there. Farce Side Comedy Hour, and bear in mind the improv troupe, which performed like Fridays for the sketch show and then Thursdays for the improv show in the Memorial Union. And I got to meet him. Like, he basically went on from there, and he was doing Second City stuff by the time I was at ASU. Second City came out and did a tour with us, or did a tour through Phoenix at the Tempe Improv, and basically like they technically opened for us, the sketch comedy troupe. I was never personally a cast member of the comedy troupe, but I did. I was a sketch writer for them, and I also was there basically their technical director and producer for a year and a half. I think it was like my first year at ASU at least, and so that was a cool little thing. It's always fun to see him pop up because I'm like, oh, like, yay for Farside alums. He also had a brief stint. The last time I really remember seeing him pop up was he was in the Neil Patrick Harris series of unfortunate events, specifically in the Vile Village episodes. So yeah, that's the who's who, and just a fun little like personal tie-in to the show, like a little 6 degrees of separation kind of thing. Some of the trivia here. With an estimated budget of $25 million per episode, WandaVision is potentially the most expensive TV series in history, beating The Pacific, which had a budget of $21.7 million per episode. In the MCU, SWORD stands for Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Department, whereas in the comics, it stands for Sentient World Observation and Response Department. The change refers to observing Wanda and the Vision, who are sentient weapons. However, we also saw in Spider-Man Far From Home, in the post-credits there, we saw Nick Fury theoretically operating in a space base, which is all but confirmed via this, that it was a sword base, which is often a kind of the cosmic, arm of Shield, effectively. In order, last little one here, that applies to, in particular, the black and white episodes. In order to preserve the authenticity of the 50s era sitcom vibes the show was trying to capture, Paul Bettany was painted blue for the scenes shot in black and white rather than his usual maroon as Vision, because blue looked better in grayscale. So I thought that was a cool little thing. Some trivia for the first 3 episodes that I'll pull in here. I did not have. There is no trivia out there for for episode 4, which just kind of came to light. So I look forward to seeing that over the coming days. But in Film Before a Live Studio Audience, of course, the sitcom inspirations on that episode set in the 50s are The Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy, most notably. The house itself is pulled directly from the Dick Van Dyke Show set, and it even references the gag that would have Dick Van Dyke tripping over the ottoman in kind of the intros, or occasionally he would sidestep it, depending on the credits sequence, the kind of that debuted. And they do a fun little kind of twist on even that in this, where Vision just kind of phases right through it. The wine served at dinner is called Maison du Mépris, which is translated from French to English means House of Contempt. And there is also a large M on the neck of the wine bottle, which may refer to the House of M, a major Marvel comic story arc for Wanda, which influenced the development of WandaVision. The commercial here, the Stark toaster, makes the same sound as when the Iron Man suit powers down, and the blinking red light is the only color seen in that episode. And then also, Tony Stark notably helped to create both Wanda and Vision. Obviously, he created Vision in a very literal sense, and his kind of bomb that went off in Sokovia and killed Wanda's parents, also very much played a role in kind of creating her path. The black and white sitcom episode ends with the scrolling credits as the camera pulls back from the vintage TV show to show the real modern world in color around it. Sitcom credits list Abe Brown as director, and there's another character in the MCU with this name, one of Peter Parker's classmates in Spider-Man Homecoming, portrayed by an actor named Abraham Atta. I would be very curious if, like, in the meta narrative, that like that kid didn't get blipped away or something like that and grew up to be a film director or something and got roped into Wanda's whole thing here. Anyway, trivia from Don't Touch That Dial. The sitcom inspirations for this one in the 60s would be Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. Animated opening is a direct nod to Bewitched, but also includes Easter eggs to Wanda and Vision's past. Notably, the 6 twinkling stars that it opens with are, of course, reference to the Infinity Stones. In a blink and you'll miss it cameo in that opening credit sequence, the helmet of the Grim Reaper can be found in the floorboards when Vision is basically phasing downstairs. You can kind of see the helmet there in between the top and ground levels, and that is a villain of Wanda or Scarlet Witch and the Vision. Bova milk is seen in the background in the grocery store. Bova was a character that I definitely wouldn't have been able to pull, but I watched the that episode of X-Men animated series a few weeks back, where Bova is a key character in that. And Bova is basically a cow that acted as a midwife and raised Wanda and Pietro. So that's a little nod to her. Auntie A's cat litter is a reference to Agatha Harkness, a witch frenemy of Wanda's, who many believe is probably who Catherine Hahn is playing here. And that is maybe a little bit more hinted at in this last episode that I'll get into in a little bit. The house, of course, pulled, much like the house in the 50s was pulled from Dick Van Dyke. This house was pulled from Bewitched. And the exterior of the house is the house from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which also, if you are a longtime listener of this show, made an appearance in Hocus Pocus back when we talked about that film for that D+ show. Because they did a sequence out in front of that house and where they were celebrating and stuff. So it makes the rounds there on the Warner Brothers backlot. The stage names used by Vision and Wanda in their magic show are Illusion and Glamour. Illusion and Glamour were the stage names used by the stage magician couple Ilya and Glynis Zarkov, who were neighbors of Wanda and the Vision in the comic The Vision and Scarlet Witch. In the commercial for this one, the Strucker watch is set at 242. The Avengers comic issue 242 from December 1983 features Vision appearing with a newly repaired body. So, very tongue and very fitting for this year's, I guess. And of course, Baron von Strucker was notable in the creation of Wanda and Pietro, going all the way back to that end credit tease of Winter Soldier. The voice on the radio in that episode, which is confirmed here in episode 4, was Jimmy Woo, who we last saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp as an FBI agent. I had in the trivia here, and I think maybe even on IMDb, it was like, now presumably working with S.H.I.E.L.D. Obviously, we saw in episode 4, no, he's still an FBI guy. He just kind of gets wrapped up with S.W.O.R.D. in the events of this series. And then lastly on this episode, the shift to color at the end of the episode mirrors the shift in 60s sitcoms from black and white to color, like Bewitched was a show that started out in black and white, but by the end of the 60s and by the end of its run had transitioned to color. Now in color, that episode, sitcom inspirations include The Brady Bunch and The Partridge Family, with the house being pulled directly from The Brady Bunch. The commercial on this one, the Hydra Soak commercial, is very reminiscent of the Calgon Take Me Away bath powder commercials of the era. And the taglines include, escape to a world all your own. When you want to get away, but you don't want to go anywhere, and find the goddess within. All, very foreshadowing / illuminating to what is going on within the series, it would seem. The theme song, We Got Something Cookin', as well as I think some of the theme songs from the prior episodes, were written and performed by Kristen Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez, best known for doing the music for Coco and Frozen 1 and 2, including Let It Go, of course. Robert Lopez also, I've been a fan of his since at least Avenue Q, which he did the music on that one as well. So yeah. Great guy. I think he may have also. I think he's also the music guy behind Book of Mormon, if I remember that correctly. That he worked with Trey Parker and Matt Stone on that. But yeah, so they did the different themes for that. The doll that Vision uses to practice diaper changes on in Now in Color is Kitty Carryall from the Brady Bunch. And then Geraldine wears an episode, obviously, now we know a little bit more why. She's wearing a necklace with the sword pendant in there. And yeah, kind of that breaks like Wanda's illusion and kind of is the first real introduction of the real world into Wanda's world there. And then this I'm now even more curious about after this last episode. But 8 minutes and 40 seconds into the episode, Vision tells Wanda that something is wrong, and the music tenses up, and Wanda stares into disbelief. And then at about 9 minutes, the scene just kind of like cuts back to before that point, and no mention of that discussion occurs, where Vision kind of like sits down, is like, yes, there is something, but it's not just this. It was the dinner with the hearts and all that. And when I watched that episode the first time, I was like, I rewound it because I thought Disney Plus had like glitched on me or something like that. And I wonder how many people had that exact same experience, because that has happened, a number of times on Disney Plus. It doesn't always have the smoothest streaming services. But now that we've seen kind of episode 4, I'm very curious what happens in those glitches, because we see here in episode 4, obviously, that the people that are watching the show from the outside don't see what's happening in those glitches. Most notably, when Jimmy Woo breaks into the voice on the radio, we saw it when we were watching that episode, but Darcy does not see it here in episode 4 when she's watching it. So I'm very curious, like, okay, so Wanda and Vision had that conversation, and then she rewound it. And so like what continued to happen there that we didn't get to see. I'm curious if there was something, or if that's something that will be explored. So yeah, I that's a lot of trivia in terms of just general thoughts on the series. I am loving this. I think it is a phenomenal thing. I mentioned the first night when it was just kind of the first two episodes. How, as somebody who grew up watching Nick at Night, that was very much doing, shows like I Love Lucy, like the Dick Van Dyke Show, Mary Tyler Moore, Bewitched, like so many of those kind of like iconic shows from the 50s and 60s, in particular. Like it was amazing how nostalgic I was getting for those shows, as somebody who grew up, in mostly in the 90s, effectively. Seeing like shows from the 50s and 60s was, and in the same kind of vein, like I think I'm a couple years older than Elizabeth Olsen, basically. So like it's entirely fitting that like she also in Sokovia would have been growing up with those same kind of shows and with that same kind of nostalgia. So that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And then yeah, just like they do a great job really like tapping into how those sitcoms felt and the arcs of those sitcoms. The first episode, the like bosses coming home to dinner, of course, being a very common trope of that time. Also, the Catherine Hahn character Agnes, the very much channeling Ethel Mertz there, Lucy's best friend, and then you get a little bit of her kind of being an Agnes type character, which I believe was the nosy neighbor from Bewitched. So yeah, like, and she in particular, I think is probably the best at really like capturing the style and cadence of the era with a knowing wink, which it will be very fascinating to see kind of where stuff continues to pan out. Especially so, all talking just off the cuff of my head, real here. The all the stuff that gets introduced here in episode four basically being like, let's rewind and show what's been going on in the real world that has led up to this moment that's kind of played out these first three episodes. You get to see Monica Rambeau in a very horrifying cold open kind of thing. She basically she blipped away and she is brought back from the blip, and we kind of see that alongside a whole hospital full of people blipping back into existence, and the hospital being immediately crazed and overrun and all that kind of stuff. And just the heartbreak of that, let alone the fact that her mother like died in the time she was away, the mother that we know from Captain Marvel. That's a tragic little sequence there. But it also lets us know that like she was in Sword before all of that went down. So we also know now that Sword predates the Infinity War. It's just kind of been happening on the sides as another covert side thing that we weren't privy to. And she talks like she's already been up in space and doing missions up there and stuff like that. So she's grounded now. She gets roped into this missing persons case, which brings her into contact with Jimmy Woo, who I love. I laughed so loud. I feel bad if my neighbors could hear me or something like that. But I love he introduces himself and he does like his close up magic to pull out his business card, paying off that that character beat that is set up as he loves magic. He loves doing magic from Ant-Man and the Wasp. I love that is still like an integral part of his character. And yeah, so she gets sucked into this world that Wanda has created, and basically is an outsider, but the delusion takes hold and kind of controls. We get a little sense that the town of Westview has disappeared off the map. To anybody with a connection to it, none of them know. Like they're standing in front of the Westview sign. They're saying the town doesn't exist. And then on the board, I love that they were doing kind of the research, and they're like, okay, we figured out who all these people are playing, but notably Agnes, they don't know who Catherine Hahn's like character is, who that person is, which fuels the theories that like she is maybe another witch of that will kind of, you know, influence or you know, maybe be an enemy to Wanda in this kind of delusion that that Wanda has illusion that Wanda has created. And we do get to see, you know, that like Wanda is really in full control. We kind of see what happened to between Wanda and Monica there at the end of last week's episode. We get to see that this time around, and Wanda gets real scary and like shoots her, you know, hundreds of feet away and all that stuff. So yeah, this episode, not, you know, skipping time or anything like that. Like the images tease that, you know, maybe we'd be going into the 80s in this episode, but this was an episode really all about bringing the audience up to speed in what's going on from like an outside of the sitcom kind of world. We got answers as to like where the drone came from the second episode. That was a drone that Monica had thrown in there. We got an answer to the beekeeper, but I also like we don't know what happened to that beekeeper because he gets rewound. And you know, did he get shoved back into that sewer pipe? What happened to that guy? So yeah, really, really interesting stuff. And in particular, some of the stuff that like I was most intrigued by is like Jimmy's message got through, but Darcy doesn't see that. It cut that part out of the episode and all that stuff. So yeah, very I just like every episode when the little seams crack and we get to see, you know, a little bit of the you know, the muddiness under the surface. I am just loving it more. This episode in particular, kind of like really getting everybody on the same page. We now know that yeah, Wanda is doing this. We get a pretty good sense that like Wanda is doing this to suppress the PTSD she's doing, because obviously she sees after she has shot Monica out there, she sees Vision and she sees him in his completely destroyed form. It's well known that he died in the events of the blip, I guess. So yeah, I also love. This is something I was thinking about. I love that like the MCU has been built out and fleshed out so well that like characters like Kat Dennings' character can come back, and like Jimmy Woo can come back, Randall Park's character can come back, and like they were, you know, set up as very superfluous side characters in their particular movies there, but now they can kind of come in and continue to be side characters, and we as an audience already have like a little bit of a connection to them, as opposed to if this was, you know, completely new generic scientists that were coming in and helping explain the exposition. The fact that like these are characters that we already know and hopefully already like, it just gets even more gets us even more bought into the series. So I'm loving WandaVision. I am excited to see where it goes every week. Now that all of kind of the groundwork has been laid here with the stuff that's going on outside with Sword, I imagine the future episodes will be some kind of split between the progression through sitcoms over the decades. Like I think the 80s, I believe, is like very, you know, Full House kind of centric and stuff like that. We'll see Tommy and Billy, the kids, kind of starting to grow up, maybe, and eventually it's going to just lead to, you know, utter tragedy. That's almost certainly going to happen, where Wanda has to face the reality of the situation, or it breaks her, and she just kind of like obviously maybe she's the one that kind of creates the multiverse. With this kind of pocket reality that she's created here in Westview. Yeah, really enjoying the show. Can't wait to see. Like I love staying up every Thursday night to watch it immediately when it goes live, and then, you know, basically go to bed and then spend the morning just kind of consuming all of the like, here are all the Easter eggs and stuff that you know you may have missed in the episode. So it's great. It's great to have the MCU back in our lives, and I love, again, as I mentioned earlier, I love that it's basically can go straight from this into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We will have like a 2 week kind of break between those shows, and then that's back, and then hopefully Black Widow's right in there after that. Um, and yeah, the MCU. Let's keep it going because they just are continuing to do great stuff with it. So I think this is holding up great. And again, I like one of the things that is really impressive is how well they nail the feel of those old style sitcoms and the sitcoms that they're clearly espousing in each of these episodes. As somebody that again grew up with so many of those classic tropes and stuff, it's just a joy to like see them again in a new light, in a new way, and have some fun with it too. Like the fact that it is a very diverse cast of characters in Westview. Whereas, like, if this was, true to the Dick Van Dykes of the world or whatever, it would have been like, oh, nope, just everybody's white. Everybody's all white because that was TV of the era. But yeah, really looking forward to it, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. So that's going to, it's going to do it. A plus, easy A plus for me. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. You've got the Avengers Age of Ultron, of course, where these characters were introduced largely. You have Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Marvel Studios Legends, which is a little mini kind of, it's basically a like, hey, here's everything you need to know about the MCU's Wanda or Scarlet Witch in 6 minutes. Here's everything you need to know about Vision. I imagine when Falcon and Winter Soldier come up, they will do kind of episodes dedicated to those characters. It's basically like little, recap episodes that are very character centric. Captain America Winter Soldier is also in here, and then you also we're rounding out with Black Panther and Captain Marvel. Extracurriculars. I don't think I've been watching anything else on Disney Plus. I think it's really been like I'm checking in every week for on WandaVision. I did see the trailer that launched today or yesterday, as of I guess the airing of this of the new Mighty Ducks show, and I'm like, yeah, I'm totally gonna be here for that too. And I think that comes out in like March, so it's gonna be a good year for Disney Plus. We've got dinosaurs coming in a week or two. We've got the Muppet Show coming in February. Yeah, lots of cool Disney Plus stuff here in the coming weeks. Yeah, that is going to do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you for joining me. Again, the original plan was to have Frank on, so I'm sorry we weren't able to do that, and I'm sorry you had to just kind of listen to me for some, 30, almost 40 minutes here, talking about WandaVision, but, really enjoying it and, having a great time with it. If you liked what you heard, once again, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. And if you do feel so inclined, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Thank you for joining me. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.